Hi, I'm Alta, and welcome to my oyster, my domain, where I mostly talk about movies. Sometimes I share some travel vlogs. Today, in this video, we are going to talk about Wicked for Good. Wicked for Good came out last November, 2025. It is part 2 of the musical, is the rest of the story. It is directed by Jon M. The screenplay is by Winnie Holzman, who also wrote the book for the musical, and the screenplay is also written by Dana Fox. It stars Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, Jonathan Bailey, Michelle Yeoh, Jeff Goldblum, Ethan Slater, and Marissa Bode. I didn't look up how you pronounce her last name. People say that the story takes place 3 to 5 years after part 1. We meet back up with Elphaba and Glinda, and we see the outcome of the choices that they made at the end of part 1, where we have Elphaba, who is in hiding, but also very visible. She is trying to bring down the wizard, expose him for the fraud that he is, so that she can get justice for the animals and free Oz from being under his proverbial spell. And we have Glinda, who is living the high life as a political tool. She is living in a castle. She's wearing beautiful dresses. She's dating the hottest guy in Oz. She couldn't be happier. Or could she? That's the question she's battling in For Good. A disappointing follow-up to part 1. I am so disappointed in this movie. I was so hyped for part 2. Part 1 left me feeling like I was on top of the world. It was just so poignant. The storyline, the acting, the songs, everything about it, I rated it 5 out of 5. You can go watch. Please go watch my review of part 1. I was hyped. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I went to see it 3 times, I believe. Like, just the themes, what it explored, the outcast, what your position in society means, you know, being made an outcast because of the color of your skin, the self-esteem issues that comes with that, you know, wanting to belong, wanting to be accepted, wanting to assimilate, the journey that Elphaba went on, and then her ultimately finding her voice, the toxicity of the friendship between her and Glinda. The Glinda and Elphaba friendship is very interesting. It is toxic, but I don't think For Good did it justice. Okay, so to orient you in terms of my point of view, first of all, I never saw Wicked the musical. These 2 movies are my introduction to Wicked. I have seen The Wizard of Oz. I saw it forever ago when I was a child, but I knew of Wicked's existence, didn't know anything about it or the story or anything like that. So this was my introduction. And honestly, part 1 felt like we were in these characters' worlds, like truly, like in deep with Elphaba, following the emotional beats. There were emotional beats in part 1. Part 2 felt like we needed to get to the Wizard of Oz plot line. It just felt like we're hitting the marks. Like, okay, this should happen. Like, we're seeing the back of Dorothy's head. It honestly had me wondering, like, does this play out better on stage? Because it is not giving on screen. Okay, so if I could sum up Wicked for Good in one sentence, it would be, it is hard to feel sorry for the girl who has everything. There was too much Glinda in this for me. There was too much Glinda. There was not enough Elphaba. We went from deep, you know, I cried 3 times in part 1. In part 2, there were a lot of tears, but I didn't cry once. I never really got into the movie. Like, 30 minutes in, I was like, oh no, like, this is not gonna work out for me. It just feels like we went from being very deep to being very shallow. And I will explain what I mean by that. So in doing this review, I will talk about Glinda's storyline. Of course, I will talk about the Glinda-Elphaba friendship. I will talk about Elphaba, and I will talk about Elphaba and Fiyero, and I will hit on some other characters along the way. Spoiler alert, I think the character that made it out the best and who was the most engaging is Nessa Rose. I'll get back to her. Let me actually start with Elphaba instead of Glinda. Even though, like, people say, like, oh, part 2 is supposed to be Glinda's story. We did enter Glinda's world a bit more than we did in part 1, and I feel like it was to the detriment of the movie. So, Elphaba is the outcast. I don't think we spent enough time with Elphaba and with her carrying out her mission. It just came off super lame. Like, she's doing these attacks and, you know, freeing the animals, cool. I feel like we should have gotten a bit more of her doing this. We got one, and then we got her putting the message in the sky, which was easily undone by Madame Morrible. And ain't that it? That's about it for Elphaba's excursions, right? This was made out to be such a huge turn for Elphaba when she decides that, like, you know, nobody in all of Oz, no one, all that stuff, that she's going to be on her own and she's going to bring down the wizard. And we didn't get much of her bringing down the wizard. I also kind of feel like she could have used somebody to talk to, you know what I mean? So that fell flat to me. Like, Elphaba's mission, we didn't get to see it. I feel like we only stayed on the surface, which kind of tracks because I just think that things ended up, the storyline ended up being as shallow as Glinda. So let me go over to Glinda right quick. It's hard to feel sorry for the girl who has everything. And the problem for me with Glinda's story, so the whole thing is that, like, she's living the high life, she loves it, but then secretly she wonders, like, what would happen if she showed who she really is? You know, she's the girl in the bubble. The biggest issue is that Glinda saw enough in part 1 to have made the turn to good. She saw enough took place in part 1 for her to have turned over a new leaf and decided to fight for justice. The problem is that she didn't want to. That is her biggest problem. That is interesting. If we lean into Glinda is problematic. Glinda is not the type of friend that Elphaba should have, because Glinda is ultimately Elphaba's op. The Glinda and Elphaba friendship works for me because I see Elphaba as someone with extremely low self-esteem. I talked in part 1 about how, like, you know, Elphaba spent her life being rejected by the first person who was supposed to love her, her father, right? The father who raised her. That man had her living outside the house, being raised by a bear of all people. Like, he was so mean to her, so cruel to her. He essentially made her dynamic between her and her sister as that of Elphaba being a servant to Nessa Rose, so much so that it messed up how Nessa Rose herself even sees Elphaba, and I'll get back to that. Like, just Elphaba's self-esteem is in the depths of hell. And so Glinda is the first person, after Madame Morrible, but Glinda is the first person to accept her, right? To dream for her. That's how I put it in my first review. Like, Madame Morrible was like, oh, I see your potential. I will take you under my wing. You will be my pupil. Glinda, after tormenting her, okay, let's not ignore that, after tormenting her and bringing her to her lowest level at the Oz Dust, was like, I see potential in you. I can make you popular. Imagine, for someone who has always just wanted to be accepted, has always wanted to have a friend, Elphaba is in the position of basically taking anything that she can get, okay? So the friendship is toxic. That's how I view it. I don't view Elphaba, just to remind people, I don't view Glinda as stupid. Glinda knows what's going on. She just does not care. And which brings us to the life that she's living, right? These people are persecuting her best friend. That should be enough. Like, even if she made the choice of, like, she decided to grovel at the foot of power, although she doesn't have to grovel because usually in a, like, fishbowl way, Glinda is the wizard. Like, she has been in the trajectory of the wizard, right? This person that everyone loves, that everyone is the best, everyone feels blessed to have her speak to them or acknowledge them, right? We saw that with Bach, we saw that with Nessa Rose, like, very, like, cultish, like, really, with those two characters, like the one that Bowen Yang plays, and the woman, I don't know her name, very cultish, very, like, her influence, right? She's next to the wizard. Glinda is we've seen her be the most influential person in Oz on our screen. So she was on the same trajectory, but she always used that power to serve herself. She always used that power for her greater good. Glinda is only interested in the things that glorify her. So even if, let's say, right, she saw enough in the first movie to have changed her mind and decide to like fight the good fight. Use her influence for the good of the people who are less than, right? She chose not to do that. She chose not to fight for the marginalized. Okay. 3 to 5 years, again, once she saw what it looks like for the state to be against Elphaba, that should have been enough to snap her out of it. She never snapped out of it. She's being rewarded for doing nothing, and it works for her because the adoration is the point for her. She loves Elphaba, but her love of Elphaba is not enough for her to side with Elphaba or even try to help Elphaba, even secretly. She loves Elphaba, but not enough for the discrimination and the persecution that Elphaba is facing to faze her. Only death is enough to make Glinda turn over a new leaf. Because honestly, what was the catalyst for her turning over a new leaf? You could say like, oh, it happened little by little because like, you know, Fiyero walked away from her and then Nessa Rose died and then Elphaba died. That girl knew that Fiyero was not all the way in. The problem is that Glinda, tell me I'm wrong, Glinda was moving with the assumption that Fiyero is a dumbass. She believed that Fiyero is dumber than her. Glinda, you know, she does the airhead thing. She is an airhead in a lot of ways, but she's also aware. She thought Fiyero was legitimately a dumbass who doesn't read and all that stuff. And so she expected him to stay under her thumb. She looked down on him, I believe, so much that she didn't believe, even in his unhappiness, she didn't believe that he would actually leave her. Things would always just happen on her own terms. That's what she believed, and that's where she messed up. So she already knew. So like the whole like, oh, Fiyero leaving her, I'm sure she was shocked that he left her for Elphaba. We'll get back to that because it's part of the like, what kind of friendship? I feel like I'm all over the place, but like, if you're friends with somebody and you don't think you're that girl and your friend is like, yeah, you're right, you're not that girl, that's not a friendship for you to be in. And yet that is Glinda and Elphaba's friendship. Glinda is on top and Elphaba is second tier. They both know it. And the problem is that Glinda's like, yeah, you are not that girl, Elphaba. Until she finds out that she is. So no, Glinda knew that Fiyero was like, come on. I will get back to Fiyero. That was not enough. Nessa Rose's death also wasn't really enough because here she went sending Dorothy to go speak to the Wizard of Oz as if he can do anything for her except like, you know, brainwash her and try to convince her and try to influence her to become part of the Oz cult. It's Elphaba's death. Like, and that is not good. That does not say anything good about her. And if only the story would acknowledge that this actually just shows how terrible Glinda is. That it takes these extremes and her friend dying to convince her of what Elphaba has been telling her her entire... Fiyero didn't need this much. Fiyero didn't need this much. If only the story had been more honest about Glinda instead of, you know, they told us like, oh, you know, Elphaba lied to Glinda, but they tried to put their wrongs on the same level, and I'm not buying that. Elphaba never told her that she has a crush on Fiyero, that she wanted Fiyero, whatever, but what Glinda did to Elphaba is a hell of a lot worse. And that's what I mean when I say that the story is ultimately as shallow as Glinda is. For the story to reward her, somebody tell me, when the book opens at the end, I'm thinking that it means that Glinda gets her wish of being able to read the Grimoire, and that this means that she's on her way to being able to do real magic. That's what I think. Or is it supposed to be that Elphaba opened the book for her as a symbol that she's still alive? Like just a little communication to let her know. Because she just said that Glinda can never know. Somebody tell me which one it is. I think it's the first one, but I could be wrong. Glinda is ultimately rewarded for doing the bare minimum, which is the life that she's been living this entire time. In the end, this feels like much ado about nothing because, well, Elphaba lost what little connection and what little relationships that she had in order to chase justice for the animals, for herself. Her dreams were shattered when she found out that the wizard was a fraud. She had to give up so much to try to do this, and all Glinda had to do was say, come out, wherever you are. Animals, everybody, come out. It's all over now. It's all over now. You can, like, which is fine. Like, there is something there to dig into. That is interesting. If only the writing, had shown that through, like, a lens of critique. But the problem is that, like, Elphaba validates this, and it's supposed to just be a story of two girls who are friends and who, like, went apart for a little bit and then eventually found their way back to each other, whatever. We could have instead gotten a story about how influence is the ultimate power. Influence over the masses is more powerful than actual real magic. Influence over the masses, having the masses on your side, is more powerful than conviction and righteousness. And the story gets close. They acknowledge that via the wizard, but they don't acknowledge that Glinda has the same thing going for her. And instead, it's up to us to do it. And some people will say, like, well, a movie doesn't have to spell everything out. It's not always a bad thing when a movie spells something out. When it tells you, like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm comparing, this is the comparison that I'm making, this is what I'm critiquing, etc. Like, that's not a bad thing. In contrast to Glinda, the movie is very honest about Nessa Rose. That's why she was the most interesting character to me. We didn't interrogate Elphaba the way we did in part one because we already got her story in part one. I mean, this was a continuation, sure, but we definitely zoomed out on Elphaba, unlike how it was in part one. I am fascinated by Nessa Rose. She continues to be the worst sister ever. That house could not have fallen on her hard enough. I said that in my spoiler-free review, and I'm saying it right here. She is the worst. But you know what? The movie doesn't make excuses for her. No girl in the bubble, girl in the like, none of that. Like, yeah, she had a moment of, like, you know, you only asked me out because you feel sorry for me, Bach, because I'm the girl in the chair. And Bach, you know, lied. Well, he didn't lie because he didn't ask her out because he felt sorry for her. He asked her out because Glinda told him to. But, you know, she's an odious person. She's a terrible sister. She basically, you know, her life got upended when her father died. Not because her father died, but because it forced her to now become governor or governess of Munchkin Land. She's vindictive. And the movie makes no qualms about it. They're just like, here's Nessa Rose. The girl is even dressed in all black. And her father been dead. I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by her trajectory. She always, from the first movie, treated Elphaba like she was the help, like she was beneath her, like she was only here to serve her. At the Ozdust in part one, Elphaba is having the worst night of her life. And Nessa Rose is just standing with the crowd saying she can't look. No loyalty, no sisterhood, and she's obsessed with Bach, and she will punish an entire group of people, an entire, ethnicity? I don't know. Because that man says he wants freedom. Like, he wants to go lead his own life and make his own choices, and she says, I'll show you. She would rather have him trapped with her in hopes that one day he'll fall in love with her than accept that he genuinely does not care for her like that. And again, she continues to be a bitch. Like, she's just like, she decides to attack his heart because, you know, he wanted to go find Glinda and stop her from getting married. Bach also refuses to move on. She does that to his heart. And then she demands that Elphaba fix the issue. And then when Elphaba does what she can to fix the damn issue, she blames Elphaba and says this is all her fault. and sends that murderous man, that murderous Tin Man, who she legitimately was afraid was going to kill her, she sets him free to go after Elphaba. And then she's out in a tornado. Adverse, inclement weather is outside screaming his name. Girl, no sense of survival. No sense of self-preservation. She couldn't preserve her heart. How can we expect her to preserve her life? What are you doing outside when there's a storm raging? And she died. And she was the most interesting person to watch. Yes, even more interesting than Elphaba. The problem with Elphaba in this movie for me is that there just was not enough of her, and what we got of her, to me, were not strong. I wanted to see more of her efforts to free the animals, or just a few more missions. I just feel like she was downplayed a lot. I did enjoy the part where she said she's limited. That was true. And again, if this were a story that was interrogating that the most powerful form of power, the most powerful type of power there is influence over people, it would hit. Like, the Glinda part was not working, so the Elphaba part could work. Whereas in the first movie, the Elphaba parts were hitting, and it made the Glinda parts, what we got of Glinda, stronger. Elphaba and Fiyero, I loved them in the first one. In this one, I was just so disappointed in everything else that I really wasn't moved. Like, I like them together, but you know what we got with them, like, I wish the Glinda and Fiyero that we got in this movie, I wish they were in a better movie. They were not enough to make up for the rest of the suck. When it comes to Fiyero, I will say Fiyero is everything that For Good thinks Glinda is. Glinda's over here singing about being in a bubble. Fiyero is more than kiddie pool deep. Elphaba clocked him in the first movie. He had one encounter. For Good, that song, I have been changed for good. I changed for the better because I met you. That song fits Fiyero, not Glinda. Glinda did not change for the better because she met Elphaba. Elphaba, honestly, Glinda did not have much influence over Elphaba doing what she did. Glinda changed Elphaba in the sense that she gave her an outlet, she gave her a real friend. That is very, very important. I actually made this point in the first review that the Elphaba-Glinda friendship does not impact Glinda. It doesn't change her at all. She doesn't miss a beat in terms of being very shallow and looking out for number one. Fiyero, on the other hand, he meets Elphaba and he starts thinking thoughts, and he is rescuing a lion. And Fiyero moved to Emerald City and moved into that palace and always had one goal in mind. His goal was to find Elphaba. Those are the shooters that Elphaba needs. That's what I said in the first review. Like, because of how marginalized Elphaba is, yes, she is a governor's daughter, but she is an outcast because of her skin color. She needs people who will stand in the gap with her. That is Fiyero. Glinda does not stand in the gap. When the going gets tough, she gets going. So that song, For Good, falls flat. They sound great, but the message and the emotion falls flat for me. Glinda crying when Elphaba got the water thrown on her also fell flat for me. I'm like, and I didn't know if Elphaba was going to survive. And even as I was possibly watching my fave die, I was unmoved because I'm like, we are with the wrong point of view. Show me what's happening to Elphaba. And turns out they couldn't show me what was happening to Elphaba. Well, they could have, because she tricked Dorothy. Fiyero, I think second to Nessa Rose, Fiyero was the best in the movie. Nessa Rose was, shined the most. Fiyero shined second most because, like, his conviction, his loyalty. Okay, he's more loyal to Elphaba. Like, this is a one instance I feel like where, like, the romantic interest legitimately, not forced, legitimately is better than both the bestie and the family. He didn't miss a beat. The moment he laid eyes on Elfie, he was like, let's go. mission accomplished. He had the plan. All he needed was the platform. For Good fits him better. The message of that song fits him better than it does Glinda. Fiyero gives her shelter, his other castle. He protects her. He's her soldier. He's her soldier. Not the wizard's and not Glinda's. And ultimately, Elphaba walks away because she realizes that, she's on a fool's errand. It's just, the story is ultimately lame to me, honestly. The whole, trying to make it bigger, it's about, justice for the Amazon, it's ultimately lame. It's ultimately much ado about nothing. Other things, why does Elphaba have the bottle on her when she dies? Why is she holding that? Why is she, why is it with her? We find out that the wizard is her father just in time for the credits to roll. Glinda lets the wizard get away scot-free with the justification that, the public would never believe anything, would never believe that he's actually evil, which, that was a good scene. Those were good lines. At least, arrest him, throw him in the dungeon, and instead we arrest Madame Morrible, and I don't know why Madame Morrible doesn't use her magic. I don't know why Madame Morrible doesn't use her magic to escape. To evade Glinda. Go on the run, like Elphaba did. Escape. I did now I'm just giving, talking about some details. I did like the symbolism of Glinda getting married essentially above a prison where people are being held against their will, or animals are being held against their will. I did like that. Her happiness is built on oppression. Yeah, I like that. The other thing too is that Elphaba decides she's going to be wicked. She's fine, I'll be wicked. And then we don't get to see her be wicked. We also get the lion being oh, I'm cowardly because she rescued me when I was a cub. That is legitimately stupid. That's legitimately dumb. I think that ultimately, this movie is so clunky because it's so desperate to tie itself to the Wizard of Oz just to remind, it's so desperate, and it doesn't even, end where the Wizard of Oz begins. It full on incorporates the Wizard of Oz. Is that how it is on stage? Ultimately, our girl Elphaba finds a community of one, which is Fiyero, her boo-thang. And, she, winds up with a man made of hay. The fact that she winds up with a community of one is poignant. There's something to be said there, but it's almost not even worth it. The story is just so disappointing. But those are my thoughts on For Good. I'm trying to think, the songs, none of them, I don't bang with any of them like that. None of them are, on hard repeat like the first one. Because the thing is that with the first one, the story fed the songs. This one, it didn't work. Glinda had some nice clothes. And I will do another video where I rank her fashions, her outfits. But yeah, that's For Good. Shallow. Very, very shallow. As shallow as Glinda. Disappointing follow-up to what was an amazing part 1. I did enjoy No Good Deed. It was gorgeous, gorgeously shot, but that's about it. Huge disappointment. I rate Wicked For Good. It's a 3 out of 5, or should it be a 2 out of 5? I give it a 3 out of 5. I feel like a 3 is bad. A 3 is average. It did what it needed. No, actually, I think I'll give it a 2 out of 5. Despite everything that happened, I think it's below average. I do. I went to go see it a second time for my notes, and I dreaded it so much. I was like, can I get away with just what I remember from the first viewing? It was torture sitting through it again. But I got to focus more on what Glinda was wearing. So those are my thoughts. Wicked, 2 out of 5. I did not like it even a little bit. Thank you for watching. Bye.